Hi, I'm Susan, and welcome to episode 45 of Susan Stanley's Stitch in Time. Today is a really big day with lots to celebrate. On this channel, I talk about cross-stitch quilting, textiles, sewing notions, and methods from the past. And I just thank you so much for joining me on this journey. This is my 3-year Floss Tube anniversary. It's my 6,000 subscriber celebration, and it's my 1-year celebration of launching my First Stitches projects. So on today's episode, we're going to take a look at my whips. I have some beautiful stitchy kindness that I teased you with on Instagram earlier this week. I have a celebratory release in my shop that I'm going to tell you all about, and I have giveaways. So let's get started. Thank you again, as I said earlier, to those of you who have followed me from the beginning, and welcome to new subscribers. I'm so pleased you're here, and I hope you find this content inspiring, enriching, and just fun. It's hard to believe for me that it's been 3 years since I, in the middle of the pandemic, was sitting on my bed in my bedroom and just said, my family just pretty much begged me, do something, Mom, you're losing your mind. So I filmed my first floss tube. I really had I had no idea what I was doing. I had watched, of course, Brenda and Laura, and thought okay, well, they're just talking, I can do that. And then, of course, got sucked into everybody else and just love. I had no way of knowing all the connections and adventures I'd have, and all the people I would get to know, all the new friendships as a result of this. And I just thank you. The relationships and the connection and the time together talking about what we love, which is needle and thread, whether or not you're a cross stitcher, whether or not you're a quilter, maybe you're a knitter, I don't know, but you know that passionate connection that we have to the textiles that we love to work with. The fiber, the colors, the meditative aspect to what we do. Anyway, it's enriched my life so much, and thank you, all of you who are there and have been there. Thank you to you as well who've signed up for the newsletter. I've made an announcement on the newsletter about this video, so hopefully that gets people going on using the process. I will be announcing new products. I will be announcing new classes, things, even tips and tricks that I find important and interesting. I'll be communicating to you through the newsletter. So please sign up. It's on my contact page under newsletter of my website, which is, I'll scroll it here, www.susanstanley, there's a D in that last name, that tricky D, stitchintime.com. It's right here below. And I hope you'll join me just to, you can always just see what's going on. And thank you for making this such an enriching experience. I've had more starts, more finishes on the Mary 1840 St. Louis doll quilt, and that experience will become more meaningful now as we move forward in time to 1870, which is my focus for this year. If you have not joined and you want to join, or you haven't watched the videos just to see what it's all about, they're available on a playlist in my YouTube channel menu, and please avail yourself to that. It's all for you. So I did have a lovely comment from somebody last time who said that the discussion about quilting bee history really warmed her heart and brought back memories. There are people who have quilting bees. We have stitching retreats. We have gatherings all the time. And she said her grandmother had invited her as a young girl to come, and her grandmother only invited the finest quilters to come and put stitches in her quilt. And I know that went on, and it probably still does. We want the best on our work if we're having somebody else share it with us. and her mom was in charge of threading the needles because she didn't quilt at the time. And this woman has been gifted her grandmother's quilts and how much they mean to her. And stories like that just connect us to our stitching and to the stitching of our ancestors or to others who've gone before us. So after this episode, we're really going to dive into the stitching world of 1870. I did have a lovely friend ask me this week, how was 1870 different from 1840? And there were significant differences. We are looking at this kind of primarily from the viewpoint of what was going on in America, but that's not to say that America was functioning in isolation. There was global stuff going on in the textile world, in stitching, and we're going to touch on that as well. So we're going to have our two girls that I've introduced to you, Corliss and Farabee, and we're going to hear more about them and their lives and how, and these are my fictional girls, to make this story fun, how life was different in 1870. We're going to look at the textiles, the dyes, the samplers, the education of these children, quilts. We're going to look at how sewing notions changed. We're going to take a peek at methods that were used and get to know just a little taste, just a tiny window peek into what it might have been like, because our experiences are so different. And these two girls are from Kentucky, and so we'll take a peek at Kentucky as well. So as you know, if you followed me, I'm not typically a monogamous stitcher, but this new chart that I've been working with has just really sucked me in, and I just can't stop stitching on it. I will break away, I promise, at some point. And you also know, if you've been with me, that from the beginning, I was just always so curious and interested in the way sampler motifs and quilt motifs overlapped, and in general, textile motifs, how they were all connected and overlapped, and the significance of those images, because I know in earlier times especially, it was not by accident that these images and motifs appeared. And so I'm just always curious and wanting to understand the mindset of earlier people who lived in earlier times. I don't know that we can totally understand. We don't live then. We haven't experienced the hardships and the challenges of daily life in those times. So needless to say, this chart is not a time period that I typically stitch, but I was just completely smitten by the colors and of course just the motifs themselves. Now this is the antique. I know some people really enjoy seeing that, and I think it is a really great reference point to look at the original work. And we don't have access to that. I would love to see the back side of this original piece as well, because I know from quilts and studying old textiles, you learn more almost from the back than you do from the front, and you always start looking at the back of a quilt or a piece, at least in my experience, to understand it. Anyway, so I just love this piece. It's, like I said, not my normal time period. Now, I have to say, this is a Scarlet Letter chart. It's one of her newer charts, and I'm just going to show you that incredible charting. I mean, it's beautiful. So I have thoroughly enjoyed the colors of this piece, and then, of course, the chart makes it really even better, even more fun. So like I said, I'm using 37 count Legacy corkscrew willow. I wanted as consistent threads in the linen as possible, and I'm using a Vera Soie d'Alger. And here's my progress. And if you, you'll see here that I've done a bit of over one. I added I decided to add my name, and I was very brave and added the date. I can always unpick the 3 and add a 4. I'm sorry, the 4 and add a 5 if I don't finish it this year. But at the rate, the amount of desire I have to finish it is, if it keeps going like this, I think I might finish it this year. So anyway, so I am just thoroughly enjoying it. I did go up here and over, and now this is the midpoint right here, and this is where the main branch of the tree lands. And I wanted to do that because then I want to go back and kind of go back and forth, working this over one area and really making sure I've counted correctly. You know, I think I've had a few mistakes on the leaves where maybe there's an extra stitch, but I don't think it's affected the overall counting design. And I wanted this to look like an imprinted pottery logo or insignia, you know, just something, or a stamped signature on an early piece of art. That was kind of my intention with that. So we'll see. Now, I did have an excellent question last time about, because I said that I was using the Soie d'Alger, Soie d'Alger for the over 2 parts, and there's a significant, at least for me, amount of over 1 on the bottom. And I tried tent stitch, and I tried full crosses with the Soie d'Alger. It wasn't so much that I didn't like the results, I didn't like the experience. So I decided to use Soie Surfine, and I do have enough of the neutral colors in the animal here. There are, you know, enough colors available, and I, oddly enough, had put together some packets of Soie Surfine in light, medium, and darks, and those packets were going to work great for this animal. And so the question was, as I had started the outline on the animal, the question was, okay, so are you happy, or what's going to happen with the loft differentiation between the Aversois and the Soie Surfine, meaning the Soie d'Alger Aversois threads are going to stand up higher than the Soie Surfine. Now, I tried to take a picture. I don't know if I was successful, but I tried to take a picture from kind of an onward angle and then an on top angle to show you a little closer what's going on. I'm going to insert that right here. So you can see that there is a slight loft difference, but I so far am very happy with it because the intensity of the saturation of the color is great. So I'm going to hold this up close and just see if you can see that on camera. And if you look really carefully, you can see I didn't take out the tent stitches here in this deep teal color or the full crosses in the Soie d'Alger, just because I left them in there. So anyway, I'm happy with that progress, and I'm gonna keep going, and it's way more fun to stitch the over 2, but I'm gonna really dedicate myself to stitching the over 1, and I don't plan to fill in that little place where I did my signature. I want, you know, my initials and the year. So let's see if I can get this done in 2024. Actually, I started it in 2023. So, you know, it might just be my start date and then my finish date is something that goes on the back. I don't know. So we've talked a lot about this fruit, and I don't want to overdo it, but I think a lot of you have commented and had fun discussing what in the world is this fruit. You know, I really feel like I said before, earlier art and art today. I mean, art has meaning, and there are always deeper meanings. And so I'm just curious about this fruit and what in the world is it. So far, people have commented and said it's apple, cherry, pomegranates, a medlar fruit, which I learned a lot about, and I've loved learning about that, a quince, persimmon, guava, and this week I had someone from my friend Rebecca from Hedgerow Stitching said that she believes it's a wild crab apple, which was in abundance in England, and the wood was used to smoke food and contained a very pleasant aroma. And then, of course, the person who wrote in, and so thank you so much for that, because I didn't know about that, and it could be. I did see another comment that the medlar tree, it was very similar. She lives in the southeast, and she said it's very similar to a persimmon, and a persimmon is eaten or used when it's almost rotten as well, and has several biblical references, and there's a lot of folklore associated with it in the Appalachia area and the South. So that was fascinating. Now, being that this piece is from England, but who knows? Maybe something had been brought over in a trade ship, and who knows? And really, the bottom line is, so I reached out to Katie Strachan, the person I know who really knows this time period better than anybody, and has done a ton of research. So thank you, Katie, for sharing. She shared with me several images. I'm just going to share two with you. And she said that typically at this time period, if it was a pomegranate, which, we're all rooting for because of the beauty of pomegranates and the meaning, she said typically that was shown with the seeds exposed. So let me put this picture in here. This is a picture she sent me, and it's from the Met. I will link the Met Museum to you below if you'd like to look at all these pictures in a little more depth, and also information about this actual piece you can find below in the show notes. But this is a picture of 17th century work that shows pomegranates. So here's the picture. All right. And she also said that she's kind of voting or feeling that it's probably an apple. And so she sent me a picture of some work from that time, needlework from that time, also from the Met, and that shows apples. So let me put that in. All right. She sent other pictures as well. And Katie, thank you so much. I think we're all enriched by that. And like I said, if you want to do some more diving, you can look at the Met's website and find out what you think it is. And, I had a lovely comment from someone who said she's voting for pomegranate because she wants this to be something positive. And really, in the end, we won't know for sure. And it probably doesn't matter unless it matters to you. And if you want it to be a pomegranate, then it's your pomegranate. So thank you so much for indulging me and letting me play. And I hope you found that interesting. So last time on episode 44, we looked at one of the quilts that I had partially made. It was kind of a collaboration of my sewing circle when I lived in Texas. I'm going to put a picture in here right now. So that quilt, overarching color is kind of browns, but really madder based colors. And what do I mean by that? I mean colors that were originally dyed using the root of a madder plant. And I'll put a picture in here of a madder plant. So this was a dye typically used in the early 1800s. It was color fast and stable without a lot of effort, because remember, this is prior to aniline dyes or synthetic dyes. And what made a dye color fast was the way the fabric was treated prior to dyeing and the way it was set with a mordant. And today we don't even really worry about it too much, except maybe when we have a new pair of like black jeans or a bright red shirt. We're maybe not going to put that in with white clothes, because the color will migrate out of the red and go into the white. And this was really, really common in early quilts and in early stitching, because we've all seen how many countless samplers and quilts where the black especially migrated, and that wasn't even migrated off of the threads into the linen, and that wasn't even due to moisture. It can just be time, the ravages of time. So mordants, and before these aniline dyes were discovered, were really essential, and they really are essential today as well. We, like I said, we don't think about it because we're just accustomed to things not running or bleeding. However, we've all had that experience, right? Whether in our laundry or in our quilting or in our cross stitch or whatever we're doing. So mordants used in early times were things like aluminum sulfate and aluminum acetate, copper, tannin, cream of tartar, and oak galls. And a lot of these were really toxic. And for some dyes, this took an incredible amount of work to set them into the fabric or into the textile. And this was especially important prior to 1856, when the first aniline or synthetic dye was discovered. And we'll talk more over time, just a little bit each episode, about this and this process. And so why am I telling you about this? Okay. I was gifted this fantastic textile this week. It's a quilt top. And I'm going to insert a picture in here of the entire quilt. Okay, so that's what the quilt looks like from the top. Now, like I said, the first thing I did was I've looked at it really closely. I almost cried. I was so overcome and grateful to this gift giver. I looked at the back and looked at the construction. It's all hand pieced. Everything about this has been put together by hand. So that tells me a clue about the date. And then I started looking at the fabrics and the dyes that were used and the printing process. And over the next few weeks, or a few episodes, I'm going to go into more detail and explain a little more information about these, because it really ties into our story of 1870. A lot of these are fabrics from before 1870 time. This could have been put together at a later date. It could have been put together in 1870, and I'll explain to you how I'm looking at this and the clues that I'm uncovering as I research the fabrics in this quilt. I'm going to give you some up-close pictures. I did give you some photos earlier this week on Instagram. Some of these fabrics are just magnificent, and I do want to talk a little bit about them going forward, but I just can't thank this person enough for thinking of me and for sharing this treasure with me. It's going to give me hours of research and entertainment, and I hope you enjoy coming along that journey with me as well. So let me put some pictures in here of the fabrics up close, and then just know that down the road we're going to take deeper looks at them and how they were produced, and why do I care? Because these fabrics were being produced when the threads were being produced for our samplers that we love, and all these textiles were not in isolation. They were all happening at the same time, and I feel they relate, and that's why I don't separate things out on my channel. It's all part of it. So here's some pictures to take a look at. So probably one of my favorite blocks, just because it's so curious, is this one. And I love this undulating fabric, and I'm going to talk to you more about that next episode. I love this one below as well, because I know that a lot of these were dress fabrics these are remnants of dress fabrics, and I can just imagine what this looked like, shimmering with the big full skirts as somebody walked down the street in them. And this blue is called Prussian blue, and we'll talk more about that. What I find really curious about this quilt overall is this diamond shape here would typically have been used for each section, but in some cases the maker, instead of cutting diamonds, cut pieces that were 2 diamonds already, and so they didn't have to stitch that one seam. And I thought, well, you learn so much from looking at the back of a quilt. So we'll take a deeper dive. And I did want to say that the gift giver wanted to remain anonymous, so I wasn't leaving them out intentionally. I would love to just really truly thank you, because anyway. All right, so I have been working on something that I am so excited to share with you, and the timing has just couldn't be better. I have something new for my shop to celebrate 3 years on FlossTube, to celebrate 6,000 subscribers and 1 year since my first Stitches launch. And over the last year, we've been talking a lot about sewing work baskets from the 1800s. Along with marking samplers and thread papers, there's one essential item in your work basket. And we've discussed that, and most of all, the most important item in your work basket is this item that I'm going to share with you today. And it is a pair of dressmaking shears. And so these gorgeous scissors are something that I have to offer to you today. And I'm going to show you the unboxing video right now. All right, so I have crafted this case, which I'm going to tell you all about. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about these scissors and why I'm so excited to share them with you. They were commissioned by me and crafted by a small European firm. And their fine craftsmanship is based on the traditional techniques used by cutlers in the 19th century. Now, cutlers were the first scissor makers, which we've talked about before. And this small workshop where they were crafted is devoted to assembling them and finishing them in the manner and hand sharpening them in the manner that was used in the 19th century. Now, why does that excite me? There's a qualitative difference, and I, of course, wanted something authentic, as close as possible in these current times for the work basket. Each pair is engraved with my logo, First Stitches, which you saw on the video, but I'm going to show you again. And that font, that script is, very reminiscent and very connected to the script of that time period as well. It matches my logo. It is my logo. And these are exclusive to me, to Susan Stanley Stitch in Time, and I just couldn't be more thrilled. The weight on the back, as you saw, let's see, did we look at that yet? No. I'm going to show you the cutting video in a minute of why they're weighted in the back. And we've talked about it before. If you did the Mary 1840 project, you know that the scissors were intentionally weighted in the back and meant to drag along the table as you cut. And it keeps them in line, and you'll see in the video a little bit more of how they work. This is all before rotary cutters, and we all need a good pair of shears. So it's designed to help you steady your hand, and it is the traditional method of cutting fabric, especially in earlier times. It helps with accuracy, and if you listen in the video, you can hear there's a very distinct sound that has remained unchanged since the 19th century. If you are new to a really good pair of sewing shears, I recommend practicing on a scrap piece of fabric before you attempt to cut lengths. And you will see after time, you will see after a few practices how this weight and the way it drags along the table, it really propels you forward and it keeps you going straight. You're going to let your hand develop a hand memory, and it is a different memory, a different function, and a different experience than a rotary cutter. But we always, even whether or not you use a rotary cutter, you do need a good pair of shears. So scissors and knives in the 1900s were wrapped in the 1800s, were typically wrapped in a chamois cloth or a suede or some fabric and placed in the work basket. They weren't always kept in the work basket. They might have been stored somewhere else because several pairs of shears, depending on the tasks for the day, were heavy. And so you'd take the ones with you. So I'm offering this packaging that I made. I made these scissor sheets as a nod towards the way things were done in that earlier time period. And they tie up, and they are an approximation of what would have been used during that time and stored in your work basket. I have two sizes available. I have a 7-inch and an 8-inch. And the reason I have two sizes, I have two reasons for that. One is so you can designate function. All right, and we've talked a lot about that tools have a function. So perhaps one pair, if you have a pair, and one is dedicated to your cotton fabric, and the other pair is dedicated to your wool or your linen. And why does that matter? Your blade will cut consistently on the same fiber If you don't mix fibers, you're going to have a better result with your blades over time. The number 7, the size 7-inch blade is a good starting size for a good pair of shears. All right, and so I remember when I was given my first pair of shears, and I'm sure many of you do, it's almost a rite of passage. And if you're outfitting a young girl's work basket or your own, this is a significant addition to your ensemble. So I can't tell you, I know you know, delighted to offer them to you for your sewing room or your work basket. The 7-inch sell for $75 and the 8-inch sell for $80. And I'm going to insert a video in here now so you can watch and hear the function of these scissors. And there's just such a distinct noise. So let me put that in right here. So I hope you are as excited as I am to be able to access these. It truly has been my pleasure to work with the craftsmen, and it's just wonderful when there are people keeping these old time methods alive. Now, are these an exact historic reproduction? No, they're not. They're as close as we can approximate in this time period. They're an elevation in the art of scissor making from the times, but they are true to the times in which we live. So the methodology is very similar, and just like with the Mary quilt, we approximated the experience. We got as close as we could, because we do live in modern times, and sometimes you can't access everything from the way things were done in earlier days. I've talked about the way scissors had been forged. These scissors are drop forged. All right, so they're not hand cut, and they're not stamped. They're drop forged, and then hand sharpened and hand finished. So I hope you'll take advantage of this. I'm so thrilled to share it with you. I have a couple other things I'm adding to the shop. So many of you, thank you so much, have been so excited about the fabric collections, and I have 2 new fabric collections to offer you. I have a general store set number 2. And so general stores were places where you would go for your dry goods, and you would purchase things, and they weren't necessarily the highest end materials. So this is representative of fabrics that would have been common for clothing. This is time period 1830 to 1890. If you're interested in collecting fabrics for quilts or finishing for cross stitch, and you like knowing the time period, and you like knowing when these likely would have been available, then this is for you. The trim in this set is so gorgeous. It's this beautiful chestnut chocolatey brown braided trim. It's just gorgeous. Okay, and there's 18 inches, and it's perfect amount for finishing a small pin pillow or trimming a needle book or something. So that's the first collection, and I will be making the collections larger going forward because there has been so much interest and they do sell out really fast. So I'm doing my best to make those available to more people. And the second one is the haberdashery collection, 1830 to 1860. This is the first in the haberdashery series. And haberdasheries were typically associated with dressmaking and seamstress shops, dressmaking and millinery shops, excuse me. And they were, you know, you're having a custom gown made, you're probably not making it yourself, you're accessing the finest fabrics available. I didn't pull the last one out, but you can see the pictures really nicely on the website. But look at some of those. That one's a French General, which I'm sure you'll recognize. I think large scale prints are even really nice for small finishes. You can center them on a motif on the fabric and have fun. So this fabric pack comes with a velvet, a raspberry velvet trim, and I think this is probably one of my favorites. I don't know, I probably say that about all of them. It's really pretty. But this will be really nice, and you can couch this, you know, wrap embroidery over it as you finish, or just tack it down, whatever works for you. So that's the shop update. Now let's move on to giveaways. So I hope you've signed up for the newsletter, because if you were on the newsletter list, you would have been alerted that there's new products in the shop and that I would be talking about them on this Floss Tube video. Again, thank you for joining me, and those textile collections are great if you're a quilter and like scrappy, or if you're starting on your quilting adventure and you want to collect a variety of fabrics because you enjoy that scrappy look as well. Like this quilt behind me is just full of a variety of fabrics. It takes time to build collections like that, and you know, it costs, it's an investment, and there are limited amounts. You have to buy a certain amount when you go into a shop. So I've tried to make a variety of fabrics available to you at a reasonable amount so that you can have a lot at your fingertips without investing, you know, a lot of money at the onset. And then of course, you know, for finishing smalls, they're great. Okay, so I have 6 giveaways, one for each 1,000 subscribers, and I think they're fun. So I have a channel with a lot of different variety of interests, and thank you for those of you who share those interests and follow me. I'd love to share these with you today. So the first giveaway is it is a used copy of a book called American Samplers, but if you are a textile lover, a cross-stitch lover, a quilter, anyone who's interested in early stitching work, you will want this. And then I'm also giving you some Weeks Dye Works floss to go with that. And so that keyword for that is samplers. Now, I will make this disclaimer, which I know you hear on every episode, but it's so important to avoid these trolls and bots, because I've been scammed once. I don't want to ever be scammed again. You have to be, do not use the word giveaway or prize or anything like that in your comment. Just use, if you want to enter this, I will use the random comment picker and I will search for the word samplers in the comments, and somebody who has used that word in their comment will get this prize. Don't use word prize though in your comment. You have to be 18 or over, because I'm going to need to mail this to you, and I have to ask you for your address, and I can't do that if you're under 18. And you need to be a subscriber, and I hope you are already. And thank you for all of you who are. So the next prize, or the next giveaway, is kind kind of geared towards cross stitch lovers. It's one of these project bags. I think it's an out of print Prairie Schooler chart called Woodland Sampling, and a needle minder. And this one, you need to say the word cross stitch in your comment, and you will be entered to win. The next one is, the word for this next one is applique. It's an applique quilt pattern, a needle minder, a Macron needle minder, and needle buff cleaner. You can read all about that. And then just a tin case to carry other notions in. So the word for that is applique quilts. Applique quilts, 2 words. If you're interested in that prize. And I'm so happy to share these with you. And some of these have been given to me to use as items to share, and others are from my own collection. This one is a lovely book called Mix It Up, and you can use these cake mix papers, but the word for this is patchwork quilts. There are quilts in here from Betsy Chutchin. There are quilts in here from all kinds of moda designers. Oops, I'm not really showing you that, am I? So it's a fun quilt to have in your collection. And like I said, the word is patchwork quilts. And then the last 2 are partial fabric collections. And so this one would be Fabric 1, and this has a piece of the velvet trim. Fabric 1. And the next one is Fabric 2. Fabric 2, and it has a piece of the corded trim, the beautiful chestnut brown or deep rich brown corded trim. So thank you so much for being here with me today and celebrating 3 fantastic years. I really, truly never thought that day I sat in my bedroom and just said, okay, I'm doing this. I never thought I would be here at this point. I would know so many of you. I would just find so much joy in the relationships that I've developed. They are so meaningful to me. It's just been such a pleasure. I have a small video if you want to hang around. It's a minute long, just an overview of things that have really stuck out to me this last 3 years. And there's so much more I could put in, but here's just a little bit of a recap of 3 years of joy and fun. And next time I'll be back with more progress on my whips. I'll share the winners with you, and we're going to start really diving into the 1870s and learning more about Corliss and Farabee and their lives. So until then, make time for stitching and enjoy my last 3 years.